Is my mom all settled into our place? Jake questioned, having made the decision to move his mother into our home without even considering my opinion. All the preparations for the move had been thrown onto my shoulders. Yes, she's all settled in. I've just finished sending all my stuff back to my parents' place too, I answered. What? He was clearly taken aback, probably never expecting that I'd move back to my parents' home. After the initial surprise, a snide laugh escaped his nose as he looked down on me. What are you talking about, Ashley? You can't possibly live on your own. Little did Jake know about my determination, how much I've been earning on my own lately. You, spending all day staring at a screen on your phone or computer? You can't possibly manage on your own, Jake sneered. Well, I'd just have to show him, wouldn't I? There's no way I'm turning to him for help anymore. I'll prove that I can survive on my own. My name is Ashley, and I'm 46 years old. I've been married for about 20 years. There are no children between my husband and me. My husband, Jake, an elite banker, has a penchant for fussing over details, whether it's his personality or his profession. He seems to still adore his 56-year-old mother. My mother-in-law lives alone at her house that is a distance from us. My father-in-law passed away 3 years ago. As an only child, Jake has been repeatedly urged by his mother to show her a grandchild soon. However, there was a reason why we couldn't fulfill her wish. The reason is quite simple. Jake said he didn't want a child, even though he always plays the dutiful son to his mother and says, "Yeah, we should have a child soon." Whenever the subject of children comes up, when it's just the two of us, he changes tone, saying, "I said that in front of Mom, but having children is just a hassle. Well, I don't need that." So here we are at our age, childless. If we decided to have a child now, it would be a high-risk pregnancy. The risks are obvious. So, at some point, we just gave up on having children. Plus, I think somewhere deep down, I didn't want a child with Jake. There were plenty of reasons to feel that way. For instance, when I went to introduce myself before we got married. "Hey, Ashley, I don't think you're a good match for Jake. The banker's wife should be more, this won't last long." She whispered to me so Jake wouldn't hear. But to Jake, she would say sweet words like, "As long as Jake is happy, that's all that matters." It's exhausting dealing with two-faced people like her. It was the same about not having children. "I want to see my grandchild soon. When will you show me?" "I know, Mom. I'm sorry. Ashley says she doesn't want any," Jake would say, blaming it on me. I gradually started to dislike Jake, who put the blame on me when he was the one who said he didn't want children. I don't know if it's because he loves his mother so much, but I wonder if this is what people call a mama's boy. His mother's words are absolute for him, and he won't stand up for his wife, me. "Ashley, why don't you want children?" "She said it's because it seems like a hassle to have them." "Well, you're such a cold person. Jake, are you sure you want to be with this woman?" "It's fine. If I weren't here, Ashley couldn't survive. It can't be helped." "Oh, how kind of you, Jake. Ashley, you need to thank Jake properly." "That's right. Who do you think is supporting you?" Yes, they would laugh at me together. And it wasn't just that. They did the same about my mother. "Ashley is such a terrible person. I bet the person who raised her is even worse." "Yeah, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." That's absolutely true. Jake is just like his mother. But I couldn't stand them talking ill about my own mother. I should have spoken up at the time, but I was too preoccupied with taking care of my father-in-law. While I was there, I was in charge of caring for him. My father-in-law couldn't do anything on his own. He was suffering from a rare disease where his muscles were gradually stiffening. As a result, my father couldn't manage to eat or eliminate on his own. When I wasn't around, I didn't know if my mother-in-law looked after him or if they had a caretaker visiting. However, knowing my mother-in-law, I bet they had a caretaker. I couldn't imagine her taking care of him herself. If she had a shred of empathy, she wouldn't have left all the care to me alone. Knowing I couldn't voice any objections, Jake started feeding her all sorts of stories about me. I can't stand this anymore. I don't want to continue this marriage. I want to leave. I had every reason to think so. I can't believe I've endured it all until now. Aside from the things I've shared so far, there are so many other things they've put me through, all of them unpleasant memories. Even when my father-in-law died, my mother-in-law was laughing and remarked, "Ah, it's finally over. We don't need to waste our money anymore, and I can relax now." Those aren't the words you use for a husband you've spent years with, especially when she hadn't done anything herself. I was the one who was taking care of him, all alone. Her comments about the money not being wasted probably means she had hired a caretaker after all. It was because of her character that I no longer wanted to be called her daughter-in-law. However, Jake recently spoke to me about her. Apparently, she's showing signs of dementia. When I asked to what extent, he said she started to forget things more often. Upon hearing this, I thought it was probably in the early stages of dementia. I suggested that it might be better for her to move into a nursing home, where professionals could care for her. But Jake sighed in annoyance. "Don't you have any empathy? You live in our house, so you can take care of her here. That's all there is to it." What was he even talking about? I was busy too. "All you do every day is housework. If that's the case, you can take care of my mother." I'm busy too. Besides, after all she's put me through, do you think I want to take care of her? You're such an unpleasant woman. Anyway, my mother will live here. This is final. No objections. It was clear that he had no intention of listening to my opinion in the first place. If that's the case, then I had to adapt to the situation. I simply responded, "Understood," and began preparing for my mother-in-law's move. I went back and forth from my mother-in-law's house to our home, using my car. It wasn't a large car, so it took several trips. The distance from her house to ours was an hour's drive, one way. It was exhausting to rush around and pay for gas on my own, but nobody was there to help me, so I did it all by myself. I could have asked for help from a friend, but I thought Jake, with his high pride, would get angry if he found out. I figured he'd find it embarrassing if people knew that he was making his wife do all the preparations for his mother, with dementia, to move in. So I ruled out the option of asking a friend for help. I suppose I must have been a little out of sorts myself. After a few days of moving my mother-in-law's belongings, I started moving my stuff to my parents' house. They asked what had happened, but I only gave them a brief explanation. My parents consoled me, saying, "You've been through a lot, and you did well." Thanks to my parents' encouragement, I mustered up the courage to go back to our house to finish what was left. My parents told me I didn't have to go back, but I said, "I can't leave things unfinished," and left my parents' house with a smile. When I got home, Jake was already back and was furious to see me coming home at night. "Where have you been? You didn't even prepare dinner." "I'll do it now. It's none of your business where I go." "What kind of talk is that? Who do you think is providing for you?" Jake always gets like this when he's angry. He yells, "Who do you think is providing for you?" As if he thinks that would make me back down. In truth, that was the case in the beginning, so I couldn't say anything against it. But things are different now. Jake doesn't know, but I've been working too. To him, it must just look like I'm staring at my smartphone or computer all day. "So, what do you want to eat?" I asked, ignoring Jake's shouting. This only made him angrier. However, I was no longer willing to cater to his whims. In the past, I would have done anything to appease his anger. I moved as he wanted. I acted as he said. But I was tired of sacrificing for him anymore. "Enough! I can't eat with you. It'll taste terrible. I'll go eat outside." He spat out these words and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. If this had been me from the past, I would have panicked. I would have run out and cried, looking for him. I knew that's what he wanted, but that wasn't me anymore. I thought, if I don't have to prepare dinner, then that's better. I grabbed my car keys to go get some food, but when I opened the door, Jake was there at the entrance. "Why didn't you come after me?" I sighed deeply, tired of his antics. You were the one who said that a meal with me would be distasteful. That's why I didn't come after you. I explained, frowning, as if to ask, don't you understand? He blurted out some incomprehensible nonsense about how I would usually chase after him. We went inside the house and Jake was still sulking. It was so childish, not fitting for a 56-year-old man. It was frankly disgusting. When I said nothing, Jake, still in a bad mood, started to talk. Did you finish moving my mom? Jake, who had decided on living with his mother without asking me, and had thrown all the preparation onto me. I'm done! I've just finished sending all my stuff to my parents' house. What? He probably didn't think I would actually go back to my parents. He smirked at me, a condescending laugh. What are you saying? You can't live on your own. You're just staring at your phone or computer all day. You can't survive without me. No matter what happens, I won't rely on you. I'll prove that I can live on my own. You may not know it, but I can live by myself. Don't lie. What's the point of telling such an obvious lie? Why do you think it's a lie? Then Jake continued, looking down on me. Listen, you've only been able to live because of me. If I'm not around, you can't survive a single day because you can't earn money. I wondered why he thought I couldn't earn money, but I didn't touch on it and said, even if I explain it here, you won't believe me, but I'll go back to my parents' house anyway. If you're going back to your parents' house, we should divorce. Don't cry and come back later. Do whatever you want. I can see you regretting your divorce in less than 3 days and coming back crying. Fine. That's okay. I've prepared the divorce papers. Please sign here. As Jake signed, sneering with an arrogant smile, I glared at him, grabbed the divorce papers, got in the car, and headed back to my parents' house. Jake seemed surprised that I actually went back to my parents' house. He called me a few times, but I decided to ignore it. However, after about 2 days of silence, since I got back home, the phone calls from Jake started again. I initially did not answer, thinking he might be abusive. But then a voicemail from Jake came in. I decided to listen to it. Ashley, are you angry? I'll forgive you, so come back. That was it. I'll forgive you? He's the one who proposed divorce, and yet he's saying this? If you think about the situation, it's me who should be forgiving Jake, not him. Of course, I would never forgive him. As this unforgiving feeling bubbled up inside me, I decided to answer the next call. However, contrary to this resolution, I didn't hear from Jake for a while. I thought he had given up, but then the phone rang. It was 2 weeks after the day of that voicemail message. Hello? Ashley? When I answered the phone, Jake was sobbing. Wondering why a grown man was crying, I remained silent. Then, from behind him, I heard a weird scream. At the same time, Jake yelled, "Stop it, Mom!" From this, I could easily imagine that her dementia situation had escalated beyond Jake's control. Ashley, it was my fault. Please come back. I don't know what you're talking about. I left. That's why you can come back. I don't want to come back. Please, I can't handle my dementia-stricken mother and work at the same time. You must be in trouble without my money. I'm not in trouble, and I absolutely don't want to. We're a couple, right? Couples help each other. Yes, they do, but we are strangers now. What are you talking about? I'm in such trouble. But when I was miserable, you didn't help me, did you? You were laughing with your mom. Okay, got it. I'll pay. How much do you want? If you look after my mom, I'll pay. You'll come then, right? What do you think I am? Besides, I earn more than you, Jake. What? There was a reason why I had never told him. Jake was the type of person who disapproved of me working. It was when I mentioned that I wanted to do a part-time job. Women should only do housework at home. It's shameful to work outside. People might think I don't earn enough, he raged. So because of Jake's pride, I had to work in secret. I desperately earned money in ways that Jake wouldn't find out. What job were you doing behind my back? Stock trading. A friend taught me. It was a success, and now I've become a professional trader. So don't worry, I can live on my own. Please come back! Why don't you take care of your beloved mother yourself? Besides, you're the one who suggested divorce. You actually filed for divorce? You thought I wouldn't? I went to file it right away. If you have something to say, please do it through a lawyer. At my cold words, Jake kept repeating, I didn't really mean to divorce. Please come back. I said I was busy and hung up, then contacted a friend to introduce me to a lawyer. He agreed to represent me right away, and from then on, all communication was done through the lawyer. It took a bit of time, but I managed to finalize the divorce. And this is what I heard from the lawyer. It seems that my mother-in-law's wandering habit has worsened. She often sneaks out in the middle of the night and dines and dashes at convenience stores. She's been banned from countless places. Not only that, but when she's at home, she smears filth on the walls and eats things she definitely shouldn't, causing a big mess. On top of that, because of her shrill screams, complaints and reports from the neighbors never cease, and the police often visit. Despite the situation, Jake didn't resort to day services because of his ridiculous pride, saying, People might think I'm a bad son if I leave my mother to a day service. It's shameful. It's not something a capable man like me should do. It could all be resolved if Ashley just came back. I heard that Jake, who used to rely on me and push everything onto me, is now a complete mess, incomparable to those days. He's thin, with hollow eyes, possibly from lack of sleep, and his appearance has become so ghost-like that it's even a topic of conversation in the neighborhood. When I heard that, I thought, it serves him right, but I didn't say it out loud and just thanked the lawyer. As for me, I've moved to the top floor of a tower apartment with my parents. Jake had always belittled my parents, but now I'm really glad I could live in a nice place with them. Finally free, I'm spending very happy days looking at the beautiful scenery every day.
Ready to move out? My husband, looking at me as if I've outlived my usefulness, confronted me. Treated like an ATM, now he was kicking me out of the house. Why must it always be me who suffers? Vowing revenge, I agreed to leave. But this was part of my plan to retaliate. My name is Nancy, aged 46. I work at the City Hall as a civil servant. After graduating from a community college, I have devoted myself to my job for 25 years. I got married to my husband, Bob, when I was 25. We had a shotgun wedding and had a boy the next year. Our son is now a college student. He moved out to attend a local university. To be honest, our marital relationship is not so good. Our relationship has gotten even colder since our son left. We hardly have any conversation. Worse, Bob's dominance has become unbearable, like when we were newlywed. Seems like he had suppressed his nature when our son was born, but now it's resurfacing. His complaints about the dinner I prepare painstakingly, it lacks flavor, remake it, are a daily occurrence. No matter how carefully I do the laundry and cleaning, Bob's nagging is endless. Can't even handle the housework with a community college degree. Why did I even marry such a stupid woman? After graduating from a prestigious private university, Bob works as a salesperson at a large food trading company. From his perspective, me, a community college graduate and civil servant, must seem incompatible. He often belittles me. I have raised my concerns about sharing housework a few times, saying, "We both work, can't we share the chores?" But his response was always the same. "It's a wife's duty to do housework. You work for the government and finish at regular hours. You should have plenty of time. Our kid is grown up. You can handle it yourself." When I mumbled, "Our child has grown up for you as well," it seemed to infuriate him, and he even said, "If you can't handle it, then you must quit your job." Bob says quit the job easily, but I can't quit because I have a reason. Living expenses, the mortgage, our son's college tuition, almost all of it is paid from my salary. I tried to discuss this several times with him. Can't you help with at least the mortgage or part of the tuition? But he always said, "I'll use the money I earned however I like," and paid only the bare minimum. We have separate bank accounts since we got married, and I can't access Bob's account, so I had no choice. It's frightening how you can get used to even this kind of married life over 20 years, but there was something that recently started to bother me. It's that Bob has started asking me for money for various reasons. There's a family gathering back at my parents' home. So what's the big deal? Well, they're asking for spending some money for the nieces and nephews. I need you to cough up around $100. He replied, and that was the start of it. I recognized the necessity of family obligations, but found it strange why he couldn't pay it by himself. Nevertheless, I had a clear vision of being insulted as a cold woman if I refused to pay, so I complied. But from that day, things took a turn. My dad got injured and had to be hospitalized, he informed me. Oh no, we must visit him soon. No need for a visit, but can you spare around $400 for a get-well gift? He said. On another day, he also said, some distant relative seems to have gotten married. Distant relative? From your mother's or father's side? Stop poking your nose into everything. We need around $300 for a wedding gift, so be prepared. Before I knew it, I was squeezed out of several $1,000s on top of our daily expenses. Trust in Bob was on a shaky ground, and my suspicion towards him only grew. He continued to solicit money from me, but I began to dodge his requests skillfully. This only led to Bob's temper souring and him taking his anger out on me. Don't you want to contribute anything to your in-laws? He raged whenever our paths crossed. I wondered why I had to endure all this. Sometimes I was on the brink of tears. Around the same time, I also started noticing Bob coming home late. Some days he'd return with a suspicious smell of perfume, and I even found a woman's earring in his shirt pocket. The word infidelity was looming in my mind. You're coming home late. Are you busy with work? I'm not like you. I have to entertain clients and stuff. Must be nice to have a cushy government job. It felt like he was belittling the work I took pride in. You just sit in front of a computer all day. Can't even say if that's work. He laughed scornfully. Don't belittle me. There were times when I raised my voice without thinking. Our arguments became more frequent. I couldn't understand why he had to go this far. Despite me handling most of the expenses every month, I missed the old days. He used to be such a kind man. I can no longer remember what attracted me to my husband, Bob, and why I married him. Then there came that day. My dreadful hunch turned out to be precisely accurate. It was an unusual day when Bob got home early. You're home earlier than usual today. I've got something to discuss. Discuss? I asked, confused. Suddenly, Bob bluntly said, Get out of this house. Having suspected Bob of cheating for a while, I asked, You want to be with your mistress? He responded, You catch on quick, confirming my worst fears. Women's intuition can be truly terrifying. According to Bob, his mistress was the owner of a bar he frequently used for business meetings. Unlike me, she was supposedly a charming and gentle woman. Plus, she was beautiful. She understands me truly well. She has a kid, so we're going to live together here. He rambled on about his audacious plans, which I had no interest in hearing. I told Bob, give me one night to think, then retreated to our room. Behind my back, he coldly said, Get out as soon as you can. After treating me like an ATM, now he wanted to kick me out of the house? The money he'd squeezed out of me must have gone to his mistress. The late nights at work for business meetings were probably lies. He might have been meeting his mistress after those meetings. Why do I have to suffer like this? Furious at Bob's lazy and unjust behavior, I decided to take action. The next morning, Bob asked with a snide tone, Are you ready to move out? I replied coolly, I'll leave today. Seeing my refreshing attitude, Bob looked surprised but said happily, Finally, I can escape this dull life. Having a beautiful woman in the house, even if it's just a place to sleep, is definitely better. I'll take all my stuff with me. That's what I need. Otherwise, we can't start our new life. Bob, with his smug face, referring to his new life and his mistress. To such a husband, I said, I want a divorce as my condition for leaving the house. I didn't want to end up as a pathetic wife who just accepts her husband's infidelity and leaves. I'm going to divorce this man. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared for a time like this. Visualizing his future with his mistress and overjoyed, Bob readily signed the divorce papers saying, That's an easy thing. That afternoon, I packed my belongings and left the house. I feel so refreshed. My husband, Bob, exclaimed loudly enough for me to hear at the doorway. His smug happiness was only temporary, I thought. I submitted the divorce papers at my workplace, explained the situation to my colleagues, and took a few days off. Since everything happened so abruptly, I hadn't been able to secure a new place yet. I decided to crash at my son's place for the time being. Seeing me after a while, he must have noticed my relief. He smiled relieved. "You finally ended it." "This is just the beginning. By the way, did you take care of that thing I asked you to do?"
"Absolutely. Did exactly as you said."
"Thank you." The curtains of my revenge had just been lifted. A week later, I received a call from a familiar number. No mistake, it was Bob. Or should I say, my ex-husband now. At first, I ignored his calls, but the incessant ringing forced me to answer. I took a deep breath before picking up the phone.
"What the hell is going on?"
He barked from the other end. It was the end of the month, a day when various payments were due. "What are you talking about?"
"This month's payments."
"What are you talking about? We're divorced. Where is my obligation to pay?"
"What did you say?"
Yes, it's not surprising he was yelling. This month, neither the living expenses nor the mortgage were paid from my salary, and the amount must have shocked him. Our family home was located in a high-end residential area. The mortgage alone cost several $1,000s.
How am I supposed to cover this amount? Your salary was..."
Bob's voice sounded incredulous. I decided to explain everything from scratch. We've been living separately under the same roof for a while, so I didn't feel the need to tell you. I've been promoted to director after my work was recognized.
"Director? Not a manager? Since when?"
Since our son started high school, I believe. My salary is probably double more than yours.
"What?"
Bob seemed flabbergasted with each revelation. "Something else I didn't tell you. I've been reinvesting money for our son's education since he was born. I now have a few $100,000 in assets. Thankfully, we kept separate bank accounts since we were married, so you didn't know anything about the money."
"Impossible. How could?"
I continued with my explanation. I had planned to divorce him sooner, but it was beneficial to keep him as a handy ATM machine. I managed to get him to agree to the divorce willingly. I pretended to be a docile woman who depended on him for money. I told our son well in advance that we were planning to divorce and suggested he go to a local university. Everything was part of my plan. After I finished speaking, Bob was speechless. "How does it feel to be countered by your wife, who you've looked down upon because she only graduated from a community college and worked a cushy government job?" He probably never thought I'd be this forthcoming. He was at a loss for words. Isn't it strange that he never questioned how we maintained a middle-class lifestyle and beyond? Of course, since we're divorced, I have no obligation to pay anything that I used to, including this month's payments. Isn't the condo in your name? Shouldn't you be the one to pay the mortgage?
"Where are you?"
What?
"I'll come to get you. Tell me where you are."
Bob managed to utter.
"They told me at work that you were taking a few days off, but they don't know where you are. How am I supposed to live now?"
He mumbled. That's no surprise, since I've gone into hiding with the help of my workplace and our son. Of course, I also enlisted the help of my parents and relatives. Thanks to that, Bob seems to be at his wit's end. "Why don't you work and earn your own money? Of course you won't be able to live as comfortably as before with your debt," I said coldly, and I could tell Bob was taken aback.
"How do you know that?"
"Simple, just hire a private investigator. It's a surefire way." It turns out that my ex-husband Bob was squandering most of his salary on gambling. As a result of his debts, he had been paying them with the money I was providing for our monthly living expenses. Are you insane, Bob, giving money to your mistress on top of everything else? One day, I'll throw your words back at you. Why did I marry such a fool? I retorted mercilessly, leaving Bob breathless and silent again. After a while, Bob suddenly softened his voice.
"I admit I was wrong. Can't you come back to me?" "I was totally wrong. Please tell me your address. I want to apologize in person."
He kept throwing out lies just to keep me on the line. Seemingly, he hadn't learned his lesson yet, so I decided to reveal 2 more truths to Bob. "By the way, have you checked your mailbox?"
"Why are you asking all of a sudden?"
"Haven't seen it yet, huh? You should have received a bill for alimony." Bob may not realize this, but I never said anything about an amicable divorce. He was the one who committed adultery. Obviously, I have the right to demand alimony from him. But even at this point, Bob insisted,
"I've never said I cheated on you."
Having anticipated this, I told him, The bill for your alimony is accompanied by your report of your adultery investigation and evidence photos. Actually, most of the content of this report is thanks to the efforts of our son, not the private investigator. One day when I visited our son John, "Mom, I have this." "What is it, John?" What John slowly pulled out was a photograph capturing Bob in the act of cheating. "You didn't divorce because of me, right? I couldn't do anything until now, I'm sorry." "Don't worry about it, John." "I wanted to be of some help." According to John, he had been running around collecting evidence during his spare time from school and work. He made the effort even though he lives quite far away from our home and had to spend his valuable days off. I couldn't waste the evidence that John had worked so hard to gather. Knowing Bob, he'd surely try to wiggle his way out of this, so I had prepared thoroughly. There's one more thing.
What more could there be?
Have we received any notification from our son's university yet?
What kind of notification are you talking about?
About the tuition fee withdrawal.
What?
Yes, the procedure I had asked our son to handle was to change the account for tuition fee withdrawal to be under Bob's name. That's because the tuition fee for this semester is going to be withdrawn soon.
Wait a minute, let's talk this through calmly.
I am perfectly calm. He should feel somewhat relieved that our son didn't enroll in the same prestigious university as Bob did. Our intelligent son, against Bob's objections, studied hard and enrolled in a cheaper, local university in Idaho. But still, even just the first semester tuition fee will cost thousands of dollars. Since the deadline for alimony is approaching, please transfer it sooner.
Please, give me a break.
Why don't you stop making a scene? I won't have anything to do with you anymore. Saying that, I hung up the phone. Later, I heard through the grapevine that after the assistance from me stopped, Bob had to sell the condo where he was living. Now, he is living in a rundown 500 square foot apartment that is so old. Without any source of money, a desperate Bob tried to keep me involved, calling me again and again. I don't know what kind of woman his mistress is, but it seems she's not willing to help him. I heard later that apparently his mistress had even left him alone. I had a private detective track his mistress too. And to my surprise, it turned out that the mistress didn't have any children. Bob was the only one serious about it. It seems he was completely taken for a ride. Having used me like an ATM and kicked me out of the house, I would like him to reflect on his actions thoroughly. Apparently, Bob, unable to manage with his own debt and the alimony he owes me, turned to his parents, but they didn't forgive him for the terrible things he did to me and turned him away. Having been disowned by his parents, Bob now has no one to rely on and is said to be lost. As for me, I have been finally liberated from all the trouble and am living a leisurely life. With the assets gained from investments and the alimony from Bob, I bought a newly built condo. On the weekends, our son comes to visit and we have tea and study together. Surprisingly, it turns out his dream is to become a public servant just like me. He's studying hard, taking my advice for the National Civil Service exam. Seeing this makes me very happy. I returned to my workplace and distributed sweets to my boss and colleagues who had supported me. What I have realized again through this experience is that if you work hard with sincerity, you will definitely be rewarded. I intend to keep this in mind and continue living.